When starting out in the Bazaar, Vanessa is the only character you'll have access to, so here's a quick rundown of the main comps to aim for when playing with base set Vanessa in order to build up some gems to unlock the other characters. There are three typical comps to play in the early game: single weapon, multi-weapon, and aquatics. Single weapon relies on Crow's Nest and Silencer, and you often won't need to find any major upgrades to get to 10 wins, but it does need some pretty specific pieces in order to be strong. Multi-weapon is consistently strong early, but it can struggle to find a pivot in the mid to late game to properly scale. Aquatics is mostly a defensive pile that either wins in fatigue or through poison until either enchants or shipwreck make it strong. Usually it's the weakest of the three, but it makes use of different items and skills in the weapon-based boards, so it's important to know how to play it. Single weapon is like sharpening a sword, a lot of small upgrades to make one item as strong as possible. Multi-weapon is like building a bomb, where you have a ton of burst damage, but if the opponent can hang on, you eventually run out of ammo. And Aquatics is like building an engine, where it can take a while to get everything going, but if you put everything together just right, it becomes more than some of its parts. Single weapon is the most straightforward of the three comps. The core of the comp is a carry weapon, typically cutlass, langshan, or flagship, silencer, crow's nest, as well as a haste source like shadowed cloak or captain's wheel. You're also going to need some kind of way to get damage on your carry item if your starting item doesn't provide its own like a langshan does. Starting skills like left-handed or right-handed are the main things that get you started towards this comp, but usually you're not committing to it until you find at least a couple of the pieces in your early shops, usually the weapon and the silencer. The major weakness of this core is due to the lack of cooldowns on your items. You can have a big problem dealing with freezes. Additionally, the core is pretty big, and missing any of the parts is a huge hit to power. Both your damage and sustain are leaning on a single weapon's cooldown, so the haste and cooldown reduction on that item is really important. Once your core is together, you're going to start looking to get more damage or cooldown reduction on your carry weapon, figure out the rest of your crit chance, and find freezes or slows. Docklines or a Curio buffed Clamora can slow the opponent down, which gives you an easier time to sustain through their damage with your lifesteal, or kill them before their scaling gets out of control. Swashbuckle can solve the rest of your crit and provides a ton of bonus damage. Star Chart, similarly, can help fix your crit, providing some cooldown reduction. But mostly you're just trying to fill the board with whatever little bits of extra value you can get to make your carry weapon as strong as possible. Functionally, the comp has good natural burst and sustain, with some options for getting scaling as well through Shadowed Cloak or skills like improvised weaponry. The sustain carries the comp through the mid-game, but you'll fall off hard late if you don't find the damage to win with burst, as many other comps are capable of killing you between swings of your weapon, making sustain much less valuable as the game goes late. For skill vendors, the crit, weapon, haste, and freeze vendors are the main ones you're looking for. A lot of good skills for this comp. Charge skills like Mixed Message can make your early burst more potent, and the crit and weapon vendors have a bunch of skills to help solve your crit problems or whatever damage problems you might have. The freeze vendor is just pretty universally good. The comp can make use of the haste, slow, or crit freeze skills pretty easily, and enchants can open up some more as well. For your enchants, the top priority is finding either a damage enchant or radiant for your carry item. Radiant loses a ton of damage compared to having Obsidian, Fiery, or Toxic, but it lets you play Swashbuckle or keep Crow's Nest in without having to worry about your carry item getting frozen. If you get Radiant, you'll need to make up the lost damage somewhere else. If I don't already have a Swashbuckle or a good damage source in my skills, I'll usually roll for a random enchant instead of taking Radiant. You'll need damage to win every fight, but you only need freeze immunity in some. Additionally, enchanting a Swashbuckle with a random enchant is very likely to give you a bunch of extra damage. It only has a couple of different enchants available for it, so you're pretty likely to get either Deadly or Shiny on it, which provides 50% extra crit chance or just a bunch of extra damage from the Swashbuckle. Once you've solved all the basic problems the comp has, the crit, the haste, the damage, the big thing to scale the comp into the late game is figuring out how to cut your Crow's Nest. Nest is incredible through the early and mid game for the sustain it gives, but a 3-slot item that can't eat freezes is a huge liability going into the late game, and the sustain is less relevant when the fights more commonly come down to just getting one shot. Getting overcapped on crit in the mid game might feel like a waste, but when day 12 rolls around, having 150 crit chance on your cutlass makes it a lot easier to lose the 60% from your nest to make room for more items. Even just dropping the nest for 3 random small items that have cooldowns is a big upgrade to the late game single weapon board. Second comp is another weapon-based comp, but instead of getting sustain from Crow's Nest, you just double down on damage and try to kill your opponent as quick as possible by playing multiple weapons. This comp has fewer specific must-haves, but if you don't have damage buffs, you won't be doing much of anything. If you don't continuously find upgrades, you'll fall off pretty hard in the early to mid-game as HP from level ups outscales your damage. That said, if you know what to look for, this is the most reliably strong comp to play through the early to mid-game on Vanessa, with a lot of interchangeable pieces, many good skill pickups, and a few different ways to scale or pivot into the late game. Early on, a starting skill like Strength, Left-handed, or worst case a crit skill is what you're going to look for to get started. The first couple days, you're mostly going to be looking for ammo weapons since they have the highest damage output. A Cannonball or Powder Flask can help with reach if your damage is too low to kill in the first couple volleys, or if you just want more reach against defensive comps. The highest priority weapons early on are Double Barrel and Grenade, both of which upgrade very well. If you have the damage boost for it, any fast weapon is useful as well. Revolver is a 4-second cooldown that comes with a crit chance attached to it. Fang from Curio or an early fight is a 3-second cooldown as well. Early on, it's a lot of playing what you can find. Ammo shops and weapon shops are the priority for the first few days. Once silver starts showing up more commonly on days 3 or 4, you're going to start looking for figurehead or ramrod. Figurehead is the best way to scale damage, giving your whole board a ton of damage and will be your upgrade target for the rest of the game if you can find it. Ramrod is the only reload item that you're happy to play, letting you reload multiple items while providing a bunch of crit chance to all your ammo items. Typically, Ramrod is going to reload grenade and double barrel early on with the ability to reload throwing knives later on. A lot of optimizing this comp revolves around how fast you expect to kill. If your opponent's expected to have 450 life, and you have 400 damage in ammo items in the first 8 seconds, you get a lot more out of adding 50 more damage at 8 seconds, rather than reloading your items and trying to kill at 12 seconds. Extra ammo is nice to have for reaching the defenses, but when building this comp I want to maximize upfront damage as much as is reasonable. For similar reasons, with the comp so all in on burst, you can completely ignore building any defenses. If the fight goes long, you're just losing anyway, so you might as well just spend all your gold making sure that you kill as fast as possible. Chocolate, don't care. Life Preserver, nope, just play more weapons. The main skill vendors you want are Vanessa skills, weapons, crit, and freeze. The new skill Steel Storm is like a figurehead in a skill. At silver, it gives 4 damage to all your weapons for every weapon you're playing, and that doubles to 8 at gold. Generally though, you're looking to solve crit and get more flat damage in your skills, though make sure to keep an eye out for Bloodhound as well. The quick burst of charge for your entire board when your opponents get half life is everything that this comp wants to be doing. The skills you're going to find determine how you want to build the rest of your board out. If you find extra ammo, you can easily skip playing the reload item. If you find heated shells, you can build towards powder keg late game instead of trying to scale a comp that's difficult to scale. With Shatter, you can use Iceberg to scale your damage while disrupting the opponent. Regardless of which skills you get, you have 2 main options going late. Either you found good damage and your goal is to play Pistol Sword and burst the opponent down, or you didn't find enough damage and you need to pivot, usually into powder keg. For Pistol Sword lines, the board will usually look something like Figurehead, Pistol Sword, and a bunch of smalls or double barrel. An upgraded holster can give enough haste to be worth playing as well. You throw all the damage buffs you can on the Pistol Sword and hope to dodge the really high health comps because you will run out of damage. While the ceiling on the version of this board is a lot lower, the lines are really natural, and it's easy to be really strong for the current day because of how the comp is built up so incrementally. The other version requires a hard pivot. Heated Shells provides a bunch of burns that you can use to fuel the powder keg, and with only 7 ammo skills below Diamond, finding Heated Shells from the ammo skill vendor is very easy. While keg makes it so that you don't need to find flat damage to scale late since it deals their whole life total, it does come with some other problems. The main one being that the pivot is pretty bad until you have keg with nearly full crit. Since you're spending your whole board to make keg go fast instead of buffing your damage, you do need your keg to do almost all of your damage, which it can only do if it crits. If you pivot into keg without full crit, you'll be winning and losing fights directly proportional to the keg's crit chance. Another issue is, unless you have Radiant on the keg, you'll lose to anybody with a Fiery Rebirth. The upside of this, though, is that you don't care how much starting HP your opponent has. They can be a 100k HP pig, and they will die to keg all the same. If I could pick one Vanessa board to play in the super late game, it would be Ammo Keg. For enchants, damage enchant on your highest damage weapon are great, but specifically Obsidian on Ramrod is good for turning it into another Pistol Sword that reloads. Turbo or Heavy on Figurehead or Pistol Sword is a ton of speed control as well. If you're going down the keg line, Obsidian on keg makes it so that you don't need crit, and crit on keg handles half the crit chance that you need for the pivot. Fiery enchants can be used to either speed up the keg or give some extra reach if you're worried about the opponent sustaining through the keg as well. Aquatics is the last of the 3 comps, and probably the worst of the 3. I wouldn't include it here if it didn't make use of totally different tools. While the other boards want damage skills, Aquatics wants either shield or poison skills from the start, so knowing when to play Aquatics makes many more starts playable. Early on, the strength of Aquatics mostly comes from the defenses. Poison skill on a catfish or jellyfish can give you a clock that's a bit faster than Sandstorm, but you'll typically be winning and losing fights depending on how strong your defenses are. Pearl and Seaweed are the premium defensive early game items that will stick around the entire game, and a lot of late game boards for Aquatics revolve around getting duplicate pearls from either Fishing Rod or the upgrade Hammer Trick. The way the Hammer Trick works is if you have a bronze pearl on your board and an upgrade hammer with a pearl in the shop, you can use the upgrade hammer to upgrade the bronze pearl to silver before buying the pearl from the shop. This way, instead of the pearl combining into a silver, you end up with both a silver and a bronze pearl. Duplicate pearls are important for a lot of the aquatic boards throughout the whole game because of how they charge each other. Most things with Aquatics revolve around the 3 items, Pufferfish, Jellyfish, and Pearl. Jellyfish gives itself haste when an adjacent aquatic is used, which charges the Pufferfish. When Pufferfish activates, it charges Pearl. When Pearl activates, it hastes the Jellyfish. On its own, the engine doesn't run, but with the right support pieces, everything will activate in a loop. In the mid-game, Figurehead, Water Wheel, or Beach Ball can grease the engine to make it tick. Figurehead reducing the cooldown of all your aquatics makes you need fewer hastes to trigger your Pufferfish, and fewer aquatic activations trigger your Pearl, as well as just generally speeding up all of your other items. Water Wheel hastes your entire board, and every item that gets hasted by it charges your Pufferfish by 2 seconds, so if you have 5 other items in play, that's a full Pufferfish activation, in addition to all of your other items acting at double speed. With Pearl and Puffer charging the wheel, it's easy to get full haste uptime on your entire board. The downside of Wheel is that your first activation is slow. You can use Holster to speed up adjacent pearls to get it going a bit faster, but then that's another slot on your board not getting hasted by the Wheel. Usually to scale into the late game, you need to find Shipwreck. Multicast on all the Aquatics is the perfect lubricant to the engine, and with holsters you can get some really compact loops going. The most typical setup for this is Shipwreck, holsters, puffer, jelly, pearl, seaweed. All your Aquatics charge the pearls twice because of the multicast, and Jellyfish receives double haste from the adjacent items. Pufferfish does twice the poison and triggers incredibly fast. Damage enchants on Puffer are typically what you want here, but sometimes you can do away without playing Puffer at all, and just throwing a poison or burn enchant on the Shipwreck itself to do damage. The comp tends to scale a lot worse off of skills than the others. You're mostly looking for poison damage or extra shielding. Getting a couple of poison skills is really important to make sure your Puffer is doing enough damage, but you're often taking care of that early on with the Bronze Merchants or the starting skill. Barnacle Crusted is the strongest basic skill to get, but it's tough to target. Only the Vanessa exclusive vendor sells it. Aside from these things, random crit skills can help, and of course freeze skills are great to buy a bit more time. This comp has a really easy time triggering the early freezes in the fight, and every second bot is a big deal with how poison ramps up. There's a lot of enchants though that scale the comp really well. Damage enchants on Puffer are usually priority number 1, but slow on Pearl with a couple Curia buffs can easily slow the opponent's entire board from early on in the fight. A burn or poison enchant on Shipwreck can let you cut Pufferfish and just play full defense with Turtle Shell double Pearl. Haste on Shipwreck can let you cut a Jellyfish and make the engine a bit more compact. Damage enchants on Seaweed are strong when fights go long, but typically you want to be winning fights faster than the Seaweed can scale. Dirtling around in the late game isn't usually a winning strategy. It's nice to have as a backup plan, but I wouldn't want to use my first damage enchant on Seaweed unless I have no other options. Anyways, these are far from the only things to do on Vanessa. There's stuff like Weatherglass and Lighthouse and tons more, but these are the 3 archetypes that come together pretty consistently and more than capable of getting 10 wins on ranked when they do come together. Anyways, I hope this was helpful, and if you want to see full runs of any of these comps or more, I have at this point hundreds of Bazaar runs on my channel, so like and subscribe, and bye!